In today's blog post, I spent some time talking about business models and stagnation. Business models have this life cycle, they go, they grow, and over time they become optimized, and then slowly they decline and start collapsing. So today I spent a little bit of time sort of just playing around with the railway model. I've been a railway engineer for quite a long time earlier in my life. And so look very briefly at 2 or 3 different very profitable business models in the railways, and why probably 90, 95, maybe even 99% of all the railways in the world actually run fairly unprofitable business models. And I think when you get an industry that is chronically undercapitalized, underperforming, stacking up big losses, there are a number of reasons for that. I mean, an economist would say the economics aren't right. You've got too much capital. You can't get enough return. But if you look at a lot of them, so for example, we look at the railway industry, and that was designed back in, the basic business model was designed back in the 1820s, and fundamentally hasn't changed very much, despite a couple of major shocks coming along in the form of cars and then planes that have totally destroyed the economics. So it's profitable to run the train up and down the tracks, but you can't really pay for the tracks in any meaningful sense without lots of government subsidies. So if you want to get out a business model out of this long-term decline where it's chronically unprofitable or ineffective, then a really good place is to go back to the very early years of the business model, when you got hundreds of different companies out there trying out different business models, trying different things that work, and you look at what it was that they latched on back then and said, okay, is it still working? Or why does it work? Why did they do it? Do we still need it? And in my noodling in the blog post today, I'm just looking at what seemed to be much of the core of the railways back there is this idea of railway time, that railways introduced this standardized time across the country because all trains would run on the same timetable, leaving at the same times, and they go to the same destinations every day. But do we still need that? Now, I have no idea right now if this makes sense, if you could build a railway system on not actually having a timetable. I mean, buses don't really have timetable. I think they probably have one, some for operational reasons, but for a lot of people standing at a bus stop, the timetable doesn't really exist. The plane timetable is fuzzy because you've got to be at the airport and the plane's going to take off at 8:15 or 5:30 a.m. or what have you, but you don't check your watch to see if the plane actually takes off at that time. And similarly, is the route that important? You've got to get people from A to B, but how you do that, I don't know. I think there are different ways. And when we start exploring business models, looking at this, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, Dennis, you're totally nuts. Railways have to work in a particular way. And my answer to that, is these are the blinkers that I keep on talking about. That these are, if you use sort of the terminology of scholastic theologians or Aristotle, are they necessary? They seem to, are they sufficient? Do we actually need those features of a railway in modern business models? What happens if we take them out? And now the questions, just process of asking those questions and then exploring what a business model could look like if we took took out the timetable, if we took out the fixed route structure. So what would happen if you got on a train on a platform and you had no idea of the route, and you got no particular idea of which cities and where it was going to go or when it was going to stop? How would that change the whole business model? How would that change the customer experience? And it opens up a whole tree of scenarios, of possible decisions that are inaccessible to us at the moment because we are narrowly thinking. And this is, I think, a lot of the point of what we're trying to do in business model innovation. If it's obvious, somebody over the last, how many years have railways been in trouble? I mean, sort of, they were merged in the UK. They were merged in 1921, 100 years ago, because the precursors of the big four were constantly going bankrupt or in financial difficulties, and they thought consolidation was going to solve this. And so a lot of clever lawyers, financiers, operational guys have spent 100 years trying to fix it, and they haven't managed to fix it. So you've got to go beyond the visible. You've got to go beyond the obvious and say, okay, what of the parameters in the current business model are screwing over attempts to create profitability, attempts to create massive value? And this is what you need to do in every single case where you've got a stagnant business. If you want it to remain the same after you finish the business model innovation, well, the best approach is don't start the business model innovation. Just ignore it and go off and do whatever it is that you want to do to massage your ego, or massage the politician's ego, or just keep whoever it is happy. But if you want to have a fundamental change, you need to accept that you're going to be doing something very, very different at the end point. You don't necessarily know what that's going to be, but you are focused on creating value, and that's what we're all about. I'm Denis Oakley. I work on business models and how to create something very special from where you are now. So do give me a call if you'd like to have a chat. Okay, and let's switch off.